what's going on, everybody? This is Justin Wolf from WolfeCustoms. Just got back from the first ever WolfeCustoms gathering, and while we were at the gathering, I put out a challenge for everybody. That was just quite simply the one stick fire. And basically, it's what I did is I challenged everybody to take a log, roughly by a foot long, process that log down only using that log or a baton, and creating a self-sustainable fire with just that log. So I had a couple people ask me how I would personally do that challenge while I was at the challenge, and I've also had a few people inquire about how I would do it after I've put out that challenge. So today, that's exactly what I'm going to show you. Obviously, you can see that I'm in a barn right now because you might be able to hear in the background we have wind gusts right now of about 40-45 miles an hour. So there's no way you're going to be able to hear me if we were outside. So we're going to be inside this barn right now, and basically it's what we're going to use. So we're going to use this right here. This is a piece of cottonwood that I just chopped down with my axe. Now, obviously, all this stuff here I could use as a tinder if I wanted to, but we're going to try to do this without using this stuff, make it a little bit harder for us. And as you can see, I did use my axe to chop this down because my primary tool for something like this will be my axe. Hang with me and let's see what we can do. Now, since I'm not out in the woods like I talked about, I'm in this barn, I'm just going to use a piece of wood to lay down so that my axe, when I overstrike, I don't go down into the dirt. There's a lot of rocks in here, and I just don't want to mess up my axe. Another thing is, if I was out in the woods or whatever, I'd actually try to prop this up and split it down, but since I'm not, I'm just going to try to split it just like it is right here. Obviously, it's time for me to get a new piece of wood because I just split right through that. We're just going to keep going. I don't have to swing quite as hard now since this stuff is breaking down quite a bit. Okay, so now what we're left with is a bunch of wood, roughly this size. and you know, a little bit of broken pieces that have split off as well. So this is usually when people will start batoning and everything else. I'm just going to go ahead and continue to break this stuff down just a little bit smaller though with my axe. I'm still not entirely ready to baton, if at all. And I'm going to keep some pieces, you know, this big, and then split up half of them about that big as well. So now, if you get a piece like this that's split, that's wanting to sit, you know, like this, so if you go to split it, it's going to want to deflect. You know, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll come over and I'll kind of square off the back, just like that. And you can save all that stuff right there. Now you can lay it down and it's a little flatter, so it's not going to glance as much. Okay, so we got some decent size pieces of fuel there. Got some medium-sized pieces of fuel here. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start processing down a little bit of finer shavings. Now these shavings here, I'm not expecting to start these with my ferro rod, okay? These are just shavings that I'm gonna make, that I'm gonna put on after I make some fuzz. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do this for quite some time. I'm going to build up a pretty good pile of this stuff. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a good pile, you know, over here of some decent sized shavings. You know, these are definitely not going to, I'm not going to attempt to get them to start with a ferro rod, But you know, after I get a small flame going, those will take really fast. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to you know, get some smaller shavings, something that I can start with a ferro rod fairly easy. Okay, so let me show you what I'm working with here. This is what I'm trying to accomplish right here. See how fine those curls are? That's what I'm trying to do right now. Now, if I was out in the woods right now with this wind, this obviously would not work. I would have to keep these curls on the stick, okay? And at that point, you know, it'd be called a feather stick. But since I'm not in the wind, I can take advantage of this. You know, and just like in our challenge, there was no wind. And so you would see a lot of people just making their shavings just like that. And that's exactly what I'm doing. But like I said, if I was actually in the wind, I could leave, you know, my curls on my stick just like this, so that way they didn't blow away in the wind. But they're not going to, so I'm just gonna keep them aside just like that. You know, a lot of times when I see people trying to make their curls and everything else, I see them up here on the back of their knife doing it like this. You know, and that works. But I tell you what, I found that if you lead with your knife like this and push down, you can just get some really tight curls. Okay, so now that I feel confident that I have enough to actually get a flame, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pile them up on this piece of stick right here, this piece of wood right here. That will give me something to brace my ferro rod against. Now I can do two methods here. You know, I can either pull, you know, the pull and pray method, or I can actually brace this on that wood and strike them into that, doing that way. Now there's pros and cons to, you know, to both of them. The whole pull and pray method, you know, you kind of send sparks everywhere and not necessarily in a focalized spot. Whereas when you brace it, you put them sparks exactly where you want to put them. However, when you're working with something like this, you're going to take a chance of knocking your tinder all over the place. So, you know, it's kind of a, you know, it's kind of one of those things where you can utilize both methods or practice both of them and figure out which one works best for you. Generally speaking, I don't have too much of a problem sending my tinder everywhere, so I'm going to go ahead and try that. You can also see that just right above are my larger curls. So after I get a flame on this, then I will start stacking those curls on. Then I've got, you know, some smaller chunks of wood right here that broke off and everything else that I'll stick on. And after that, then I'll start going to my larger fuel. now is when these curls right here are really going to come in handy, because they'll take off fairly fast. And keep me burning. Okay, so at this point I think it's safe to say that I could continue stacking this wood on, and it's going to ignite and it's going to be sustainable, no problem at all. I mean, it's just, I know it's going to be. But you know, right now, like I said, I'm inside of a barn and everything else. There's hay and everything, so I don't want to get this fire very large. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this fire out. You can see that it's a nice fire. Okay, there's no problem keeping this thing going at all. It would turn into a coal bed, no problems. But like I said, I don't want to risk burning the hay down. Stuff's expensive. Alright guys, well there you go. I hope that has answered a lot of questions that I had, and showing you guys exactly how I personally would take on that challenge. I do apologize that I can't be outside and let that thing go, you know, and build up a good coal base and everything else. But I think it was pretty obvious that there was really not going to be an issue with that. That fire was going to go, no problems at all, and I was not concerned about that at all. But like I said, I'm not going to risk burning these hay bales down, because these things are, like I said, very expensive. You can see that the tools that I used was an axe and a knife. It doesn't have to be a full-size knife like this. It could be a smaller knife and everything else, because 90% of the work was done with this guy right here. So this is a fun challenge, you know. I mean, this is one of those things. I haven't done this challenge in over 3 years, so this is the first time that I've done it. Like I said, 3 years, and you know, it's always fun. It's always interesting. It's always challenging, tiring. You know, it's a little bit of all, but it's a good challenge. So I hope a lot of you guys take the initiative to, you know, get out and try this challenge and everything else, because, you know, like I said, it's just plain fun. Now, the other thing is, you saw that when I first brought that log over there, it had all the inner bark and everything else on there. So I mean, you can utilize that as tinder all day long, but that wasn't what the challenge was all about. The challenge for me was to, you know, make those curls and everything else, get that ferro rod to start them, and go that direction. So anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.